Hi YouTube, welcome. This is going to be a really quick one-shot tutorial here. So I'm working on this character and you can see I've retopologized it. I used Z-remesher, so it makes the topology nice and clean, but as you can see, certain parts don't have very optimal edge loops for sculpting in detail, and you'll notice the nose here and also the eye socket. And so I'm going to show you a quick way to strategically subdivide planes inside of a retopoed mesh. So let's just get right into it here. So I'm going to select, this is in edit mode, okay? So I'm going to just select the planes. Think of it like doing one loop of topology around where you want the whole area to be. So I'm just going to kind of freely select this whole area. And to do this how I'm doing it, I'm just holding Control and Shift and then left clicking, and it will kind of jump across the gap to fill quickly so I don't have to manually select the points. Okay, so with my plane selected, now I'm just going to right click and subdivide, and you'll see that obviously these are still good planes, but it creates n-gons at the edges, and we don't want to deal with those. So I'm just going to uncheck this create n-gons box on the little context menu that pops up when you subdivide. So I'm going to uncheck that, and now you can see it's triangulated the area around there. And now let's say this is not quite enough extra detail, so I'm going to hold Control and push the minus key, and it's going to select one less face step. Okay, and now I'm going to just right click and subdivide one more time. Make sure the create n-gons is off. You can leave it on if you want to fix the edges of this new selection in some other time, but I'm going to leave that checkbox off. And now you can see that there is a ton of detail in here. And obviously, you'll probably come up with a couple drawbacks here, and we'll talk about those briefly. But this gives you a ton of topology to be able to edit just this one spot. The thing I like about it is I'll push 2 here and go into edge loop select mode. And now you'll see that in areas around this, I can still pretty easily select the loop around the topology. So it won't really mess with my seams here. These red marks here are seams that I've set up manually for UV unwrapping this. And so basically you would be able to block out this entire area still. It doesn't make messy topology. It's kind of like that's why I call it a strategic subdivide. It's just in this spot. And really, if you had to, you could select those edges and just mark them as a separate seam. And that'll kind of help contain this area in a UV unwrap. So I'm not going to do that at the moment. I might come back and do that later. So now what I can do is I'll just go over into sculpt mode. And now I can kind of sculpt this how I want to. So there's really 2 more tools that I want to use in this method, and I'll show you the edge loops here. So the way that these loops are following this eye socket here is not ideal, but since we have so many points available, I'm just going to use this relax slide sculpting brush here. I'm going to set the strength to like maybe half. So you can do it in the slider up here, or just hold shift and push F, and then you get this little wheel that you can expand with your mouse. So I'm going to go around 500, well, thousandths, or about half. And I'm just going to use this relax slide, and I'm going to move these planes so that the loops line up better with the shape of the eye. I might actually put that strength up just a little more. Now it's gonna pinch some of these together, and it's gonna kind of mess with the spacing of the planes just a little bit, but that's not going to be a huge issue, and I'll show you why. But basically, we don't need the inside of this eye socket to be super detailed. So the nice part of this method is you can really just grab a whole bunch of these. I'm going to put my strength up higher, but you can grab a whole bunch of these at a time, and just pull them out. And this sculpting tool is really nice because it will try to keep the shape of the mesh. So if we go back into the solid view, you can see that even these ridges that were there from subdividing are still present. We haven't destroyed the shape of it really. So I'm just going to kind of fit these to be the right shape. Now, where I have these lines going across, that looks good. I don't really like how stretched out these planes are, so I'm going to just keep relaxing this. Keep working on it until I think I can handle it. And basically with an eye socket, you'll want to get a nice loop flow through the middle, and then you'll want one, you know, to kind of follow around the edges. And so here, since we have so much topology, I can just bring all of these down, kind of bring these ones up, and then just keep working on it. Now, since this is a rigid part of this model, since it's a more of like a, it's a dragon head, so it's a lot more of a stiff model. There's not going to be as much play in the eyebrow there. I can leave some of the kind of fractured topology around the edges. That's not going to cause any problems. But I'm just gonna try to keep making this flow just a little better. And at some point you'll have to have a corner, and you can see here this spot right here is a pole, meaning that it's a spot where the loops switch direction. So ideally that would be down here at the center of the eye. So let's try to get that one set. And then let's use our extra topology and just kind of pull it around. So now you can see that there's kind of this loop that's starting to go around the top. I'm going to keep pulling the back down. And it's okay. It's okay to pinch these excess polygons at the back side. So now I'm going to kind of do the same thing on the bottom. And I'm just going to try to make this a nice oval shape on the inside of the eye, because that's really where anything is going to deform. And then also, since I have so many polygons, I'll be able to sculpt more of an eyelid out of this. If you're not going to add the eyelid as a separate piece, you can just use this extra topo to kind of build it. And then up here, we don't need near as many. And then once you get them to be kind of close to where you want them, just keep pulling them around. We'll say that is about where we want it at the moment. So now what I can do is just use the smooth tool. I would start with a pretty low strength value, but I'll go at like maybe 0.12. And then I'm just going to really gently smooth. You don't want to do a tiny area like this. I'm changing this brush size by just clicking F and then changing it with the mouse. I'm going to go to a pretty big area with a low strength, and I'm just going to start to clean up the topology a little. And it's okay around the edges to hit the whole edge. What it'll do is it'll kind of suck in the triangles that you made by subdividing, and kind of help prevent some weird shading where you have these really long triangles. So I like to pull the edge in as well as fix everything on the inside of the new mesh. We don't want to get too wild with the outside, because again, you want to keep the very outside of this box of topology kind of original. And you can see though that this will help just a little bit to keep polygons more consistent. We don't want any of these really long kind of ripped ones. So I'm going to just switch back and forth between the relax slide and the smooth tool. And we'll see here in just a second that you can get this to really look nice and smooth without having really any backdraws. Now, obviously, if you want a mesh with all quads, this will prevent you from having that. In my workflow, at least, I don't necessarily need all quads. You can easily rig and texture a character that does not have all quad topology, so that's not really going to hold me up. But if you know you need that, this method may not work the best, or you'll have to come in and kind of manually clean up some of these triangles, which is possible, but also adds a little bit of work. So I'm going to go back to smooth and just kind of keep scaling this topology just a little bit. I might increase the strength here. Just keep working on it. And then you can also change back into solid view every so often. And now you can see that these kind of weird ridges that we created when we subdivided are now smoothed out. And really the eye socket looks pretty smooth. So we haven't really hurt anything, but we've given ourselves a bunch of topology to work with. And so now if I want to start building eyebrows out of this, I'm just going to pick like a draw tool. I'm going to set the strength really high. And then I'm just going to kind of just start to block in a little bit of this eyelid shape here. And you can see there's plenty of topology, and you'll probably have to do the same process of smoothing and relax sliding the mesh so that you can clean up this loop. And keep in mind, we have a lot of extra topology inside of the eyelid, or inside of the eye socket, that is. You really don't need all of that in there. So you can hit your relax slide again and pull more of those planes out from the center. It takes a few clicks. You got to slide it quite a bit around, but this will help kind of shape the mesh to where you need it. And having messy polygons or not enough polygons on the inside of the eye socket really will not matter at all, because the eye will cover it. So you want to focus on the eyelids and obviously the eyebrow area in general. But you can see we're kind of starting to get this nice general shape that flows around the eyeball. And I'll just keep pulling these planes out because they're just extra that we can use for sculpting. I'll just keep pulling these up. If you make the brush smaller, you can kind of control the outcome just a little more, but it doesn't move everything together. So we'll just keep kind of working these polygons outward. And every time you use the relax slide tool, you'll have to come back and hit it with more smooth, because now you can see there is some artifacting there. So let's go back in here with the smooth tool, and we're just going to be really gentle with it, because a lot of that artifacting comes from having these extreme angles. And once you get rid of those, it solves most of the problem. And once you get the topology kind of moved around to where you want it, it's really easy just to kind of re-sculpt the shapes that you built. So since these got a little bit smoothed out, now I can just come in here and I'll use like inflate or draw and just kind of start adding back a little bit more of that thickness that we had on there to begin with. That is looking okay to start with. So from there, you can basically just go about it like you would normally, as if this was a high poly model. And you can do plenty of sculpting on this without destroying anything. And I'm just going to keep hitting this so you can see that the shading artifacts do get better. And that is the result. So it's looking pretty good. Here it is compared to the other side. Since we did not mirror the selection, this is kind of if you had just sculpted it. And this is with the new extra subdivision. So I'll show both sides of it here in the wireframe view. But here's what it looks like on this side. Now, if you like this side better, you could obviously keep this. But I'm going to stay with the higher poly side. And now I think I'm happy with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch into edit mode. I'm going to select all. And then I'm going to come up here to mesh. I'm going to go symmetrize. And that's going to basically copy one side of the mesh to the other. So I'm going to say go from plus X, because that's the side we worked on, to minus X. You can leave the threshold setting at the minimum. And now you can see that it's copied all of that topology that we just worked on to the other side. Now I'll go back to object mode, and you can see that this is what the eye socket looks like. So the next step for me will be to do the same process on the nose. But I've been doing this a few times on this model lately, so I thought I would share it. That's it for this one. Let me know if you have any questions.